Hi fun friends. The purpose of today's video is to create multiple visualizations in Tableau and compare those to previous visualizations that were made in R. Just for a point of reference, this document is showing the visualizations that I made in R. I have a scatter plot, a density plot with a comparison of three treatment conditions, and a bar plot. So these are the visualizations that I'm going to recreate in Tableau. And then I'm just going to add those to this document and compare the visualizations side by side. So I'm going to get started. So to begin with, I have just a blank workbook in Tableau. The only thing that I've done is opened Tableau, and I got this blank book by clicking on File and New, and then this is what opens. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to connect data. My first plot is going to be a scatter plot. So my data is in an Excel file, so I'm going to go to the file, and then I want the scatter plot data. And this is the same data that I used in R. Tableau is going to take just a second and open that, and I'm going to look at these variables before I move on to the worksheet. So first I notice that this variable 1 has too many data points, so I am going to change that to a whole number, or I had too many zeros behind the decimal point. I'm sorry. Then I don't think that my variable names are very clear, so I'm going to go ahead and change those here. I'm going to use the rename, and for variable 2, I'm going to rename it to production rates in pieces. And I just clicked enter to accept that change, and I can see my field names. I could also have done that here, and as an example, I'll just rename variable 1 to training in hours, and then I'm clicking enter on my keyboard to accept those changes. Okay, so now I have my variables renamed, and I'm going to go to the worksheet. I'm going to begin by renaming this worksheet to employee performance. And then I clicked anywhere outside of the tab title to close the tab title editor. And so next I want to create a scatter plot here, and so I want to get production rate in pieces in my columns, and training in hours as my rows. So this is giving me only one data point, and that's not what I want because these are sums. So I'm going to change these to dimensions, and there I have the scatter plot where each data point represents how many hours the individual trained and the number of pieces they were able to make within a discrete period of time. For the purposes of this demonstration, I don't feel like that is terribly important, the time frame, since I'm concentrating on the visual. So just for reference, I want to go back and look at my scatter plot in R, and it does look a little bit different. So first I'm going to go into I want to go into shape and do black triangles. Well, those are blue triangles. And here I'm changing the color to black. And I'm doing this because the original report that I made was using in R, using ggplot, was these black triangles for data points. So now this is looking pretty similar, but I think that this is just a little bit hard to read, so I'm going to make a couple of more changes. I'm going to go to Format, and I wonder what happens if I make these a bit bigger. So that, I went to cell size, I just made them a little bit larger so they stick out a little bit, and then I want to format the title. I would like to have, nope, that's not what I want. Let's try format font. And then here I can bold the title and make it a little bit bigger so that it stands out some more. Make it just slightly smaller, slightly larger. And then I also want to change, is it the headers? It is. So these little, the X and Y axes are considered headers, and I'm going to make those a little bit bigger so they could be red. Maybe that's too big. Maybe not. I'll just make it down to 14. Oh, maybe 13. Well, 12. Okay. So there I have my scatter plot. So I'm going to take a screenshot of the scatter plot, and then I'm just going to add this into my my report here side by side. I specifically want to, oops, I lost it, fix it to the, I want to be able to drag it around, so I'm going to make this smaller and then move this over a little bit, just so I can move these around and have them side by side. I think that this one's still a little bit bigger or wider. Okay, so they're not exactly the same. I can definitely see some differences. But I do like the clearer background without the gray shading. That was one thing that I like. What I do not like is how many kind of tick marks there are here. So very good. I'm going to move on to my next visualization, which is going to be density score, a density plot. For this example, so here I go. I'm going to open a new book. It takes a second. I'm just going to minimize this one while I'm waiting, and here we go. So now here, like I said, my next visualization was going to be a density curve. In my original analyses, I was comparing 3 different density curves, but for the purposes of this visualization, I'm only going to recreate one of those curves. So first I'm going to connect to data, and I have my data in an Excel file, and it is the density data here. So I'm just going to open this and allow Tableau to open my data. As opposed to R, where I had 2 variables, I now have 3 variables, 1 variable for each level of treatment. And for this visualization, I'm only going to be using the low treatment. So I'll go to my worksheet. I'll go ahead and change the name of the title first. And I'm just going to change it to density curve. Of low training. And maybe I'll take out curve. I don't think I need density of for low training. Maybe 4 is better. Okay. Density for low training. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm using the low treatment, so I'm going to make that into a column. I would like to have, let's see, I want to do this histogram. So I clicked on the Show Me to open the Show Me panel, and then I clicked on the histogram variable. So now I have this low treatment bin as columns and the count for low treatment as rows. In order to make something that's like a density curve, I'm going to change the marks from automatic to line. And here I get something that's a little bit closer to one of these curves. I'm looking at this green one actually. And then for additional efforts to facilitate the smoothing of this curve, I'm going to use a quick table calculation for a moving average, which changes the value on the y-axis to the moving average and smooths this density curve out just a little bit. And this is about as close as I can go for a density curve using this method without doing some more advanced calculations. But it gets the idea, the general idea of the distribution of treatment scores for the training. So for this one, I'm not going to change the color or the size. I'm just going to leave it as is, but I will format the font so just so I can make the title bold and a little bit bigger so that it's easier to read, and the headers bold as well. Great. So here is my density curve. I'm going to take a screenshot of this and put it into my report by pasting a picture. And this one came out really big, so I'm going to make it smaller, much smaller. Change the fixed position page so that I can move it, although my other graph is moving around, so I want to fix this position as well. And then here I have a comparison of density scores by treatment and a density score for the low training. And now I'm going to move on to a bar plot, which is my next graph. Specifically, this is a horizontal bar plot. So I'm going to create another new workbook. Let me get rid of this one for now. And give Tableau a second to open the new workbook. I'm going to try it one more time because it's taking a bit longer. So Tableau decided to open it up outside of my screen viewer, but here it is. I'm dragging it over, just filling out my screen recorder screen. So now for the bar plot, I'm going to connect to the data again using a Microsoft Excel file, and for this I'm going to use this data /bar plot. It's the same data I used in R. So we have the treatment and time. I am just going to change the aliases for these and to change the names of them to training A through D. Bear with me just for a second. Hopefully those are all spelled right. Now I'm looking at, I have two variables with 4 instances, and it has a time for 4 different trainings. I'm going to go to the worksheet. What did I name this? Before it was effectiveness of training on completion time. I'm just going to go along with that. Effective training on completion time and interim. Okay. Then I want to take my treatment. So this time I want a horizontal bar plot. So I want my treatment to be the rows. And then I want the values of the measure to be the columns. Oh, and here is my bar plot. Now, to me, this looks a lot different than this bar plot. Not to say one is better than the other, but I do have a personal preference that the bars would be bigger. So I don't want that. This takes care of, so the size tooltip takes care of the white space between the variables, and I'm not necessarily interested in that. I'm interested in the size of the bars, so I want them, no, not wider, because that altered the length, but I want them taller. I like that. And I would like them bigger. Let's do one more, taller. I like the way that looks. I would like to have multiple colors. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Let's see, the treatment as colors. There we go. I was trying to figure out how to do that. So now I have my treatment as colors. The treatments are indicated also here with this legend. I wonder if I can move this around. I cannot. And then I'm just going to make some of the other additional adjustments that I had, which is to format the font. That means the title. Oh, that's the tooltip, not that one. The title. And we'll bring it up to 22. And the headers I will bold and make just a little bit bigger. That looks a lot better to me. So the first thing that I notice about this is that it's not a square the way that the one in R was. So it's not really going to be in line. It is more of a rectangle shape, and I wonder if I can edit the axis and change these tick marks to maybe instead of 20. Would that do anything? No, it does not. So that is not working for me, so I'm just going to reset it and consider this graph complete. I will take a screenshot of it. However, I was hoping that I could move this legend around, but I'm not sure that I can. Although I guess I can just hide the card because it doesn't matter because they're labeled here. I just like the way that it looks in these colors. And then I'm going to, once again, take this screenshot, but I feel like here that I'm not going to be able to put it next to each other. I'm going to put it below it. And while I don't think that this is super effective at being able to compare the two, maybe now, because I can get them on the same page. Here's my comparison of the horizontal bar plot in R and in Tableau. Great, thank you for hanging on there with me through that. So lastly, I just would like to talk about which I would prefer to use for a particular project. And while these two demonstrations were limited in the number of additional components that I changed for each, for the scatter plot, I like the Tableau visualization, but I can get this same look in R by changing the background and the tick marks. But specifically, I like these, the X and Y axes tick marks better than the ones in Tableau. I think that Tableau was a little bit easier to put together, but I don't think that this would be difficult to achieve in ggplot using R either. For the density plot, I have the same feelings about the background for this density plot. However, I was unable to get or compare 3 density scores in one graph the way I was with R. Specifically, R has a package that enabled me to visualize this a lot easier, and then I could customize the background of this visual in R. And then I think that I would prefer to use R for future density plots. Because I have the additional options of smoothing those curves as well. But I'm not opposed to learning how to do that with more syntax in Tableau. I think it would be a great challenge. Now, as far as the bar plots go, I know that I can create the same look of multiple colored lines and the length of bars and adjusting the scales of each axis, as well as titles and everything the same way that I did in Tableau. I think specifically for this plot, Tableau was easier to make it. No, I don't think that that's fair to say. I think that it would depend on the purpose. You can customize many things in R, so this is just really hard to say. I think that it would depend on the context, but I do like this visualization in Tableau down here. That is all I have. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video about making visualizations in Tableau and allowing me to compare them to visualizations I previously made in R.